with the clerk to the roll call, please.
President Norris?
Here.
Vice President Young?
Here.
Secretary Spiker?
Here.
Commissioner Herron?
Here.
Commissioner Pollard?
Here.
Do we have any public comment?
Approval of agenda.
Oh, right. Thanks, Commissioner Pollard. Do I have the approval of the agenda?
I move the approval of the agenda. I'll second it.
Is there any changes or anything that anybody wants to make first? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. And we know that nobody wants to make a public comment, so we will go on to election of officers. And the chair would like to ask if I can get a motion for election of the president first, and then we'll do vice president and then secretary. Do I have a motion for president?
I make a motion that we continue with Dariel Norris.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
What was the motion for? I'm sorry.
President?
Oh, okay. And the motion or the nomination was what?
Dariel to continue?
Dariel?
Yes.
That was seconded. Do we have any other candidates that somebody would like to put forward? Then I guess we will go ahead and vote on that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next is vice president. Do anybody want to make a motion for vice president?
I move that Emma Herron be appointed vice president. That would be the first time that a minority member of our community has held an office on the board. And I'd like to support that.
Do I hear a second?
I would second that. I don't have any problem changing where someone wants to oust me and mine, that's okay. I don't have any problem about that.
I don't want to oust you.
Okay, well, I just, I think we should rotate a little bit.
I think you're right. I agree. Do we have any other nominations?
I'd go ahead and nominate Joan too.
Okay. All right.
So we could vote on both.
All right. I think that's a good idea. Are there any other motions?
I move the closure of the motions.
There doesn't appear to have been a second to the motion.
Oh, yes, that's right.
There's been a
I'll
motion
second
and a second
for Emma.
for Commissioner Herron,
No.
but there's only been a motion for Commissioner Young.
I'll second Commissioner Young. Thank you. Okay, and now I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of Commissioner Herron, say aye.
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 Opposed? In favor, and that's 3 ayes, right? 1, 2, 3. And those in favor of Commissioner Young, vote. I vote aye. Are you voting, Joan?
Yeah, I said aye.
Okay. And it looks like Commissioner Herron has taken the position of vice president with 3 votes to 2.
Secretary.
Yes, secretary. Okay. Do I have nominations for secretary? Nominate Commissioner Spiker, secretary. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Then we will go ahead and vote. All those in favor of Commissioner Spiker, say aye. Aye. Opposed? There's not an opposition. It's unanimous. So that is our slate of officers. And I thank everybody for voting. I appreciate that. Next, we have committee assignments, and that in our bylaws is something that the president does. And I believe I've talked with everybody, so I will tell you what they are. And if there's any discussion, I think that we will open it for discussion if you're not happy with it. But Finance, David Spikers, Dariel Norris. Medical Committee, Joan Young, Emma Herron. Facilities, Commissioner Pollard and Emma Herron. Quality and Steering, Commissioner Young and Commissioner Norris. Bylaws Ad Hoc, Commissioner Herron and our Counsel, Skip Hauser. Those are our assignments. Okay. Is there any discussion about that?
I think your slate is fine. The only thing is I would like to see a second commissioner, not necessarily myself, on the bylaws ad hoc. We've always had two commissioners before.
Does somebody want to volunteer?
I will volunteer.
Okay. John, would you like to volunteer with
Sure.
Emma to do that? You'll be lucky if you get anything done, Skip, but good luck.
Oh, we move.
I think so.
We
I have great confidence in that team.
Oh, they're a good group, let me tell you.
Commissioner Young, you volunteer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. All right, so we will move on then. Next is communications, and I do not have any particular communications that I need to share, and I believe that the Superintendent, Tom Parker, will be leading us with some information.
Thank you, President Norris. You have the written update, and I'll go through it as I have done in the past. First, with our affiliation strategy, we continue to work with Astrea Health to develop a letter of intent to bring to this board. The next step in the process is to develop a structure for the relationship between Astrea Health and us that meets the objectives of both parties. We're currently evaluating the pros and cons of the structures proposed by Astrea Health in response to the RFP, and that is the acquisition or lease structure. We anticipate that this will take 30 to 45 days to accomplish, and once we have a structure drafted, we'll work on other provisions to be included in the LOI. The intent here is to invest our thoughtful time up front on the structure to be more efficient with our time and resources. What that means is that we want to get the structure piece done before we start working through other provisions of the LOI, because the structure really drives a lot of it, and we don't want to get the cart before the horse here. On finances, the financial report will show that in November there was a net loss of $125,000 compared to the budgeted net income of $11,000. Year-to-date net income is $97,000 compared to a budget of $206,000. Our unrestricted cash rose to $7.9 million. Average daily census in November was 22.3 compared to the budget of 22. Parenthetically, I'll say that sounds good, but what was challenging, and Mr. Spiker will probably talk about this, is that we had an unfavorable payer mix in November. We had many more commercial patients than we usually have. Our occupancy rate was 89%. The ED visits year to date through November were slightly below budget, and November, by the way, was a pretty low month for ED visits. Our operating expenses for November were 7% or $188,000 under budget, and we are 3% or $955,000 below budget year to date through the end of November. Some insight on December. December inpatient volumes were higher than November, with an average daily census of 23.9. That's 96% occupancy. Average daily ED volume in December was 11.6, tying August for the second highest ED patient count of the year. The ED ended the year slightly higher than budget, just 1% over budget, but we'll take that at 3,920 visits. Happy to report that out of the Eastside Health Network activity, our clinically integrated network, EHN, of which we're a member, has established 6 new provider contracts with area managed care organizations. These are effective starting this year and represent approximately 37,000 covered lives combined. That will, in essence, bring more patient activity to our clinics and to the hospital. Our 340 drug program, our 340B pharmacy services agreements that I reported on last month have now been accepted by the Health Services and Resources Administration, HRSA. With this acceptance, we have completed the final step in the application and approval process with HRSA. Over the next 4 to 6 weeks, we will install and train on the operational and audit software, and we anticipate to go live as planned April 1. Another significant project that has impact on this year's budget is the Rural Health Clinic. Work continues on qualifying the Snoqualmie Ridge Medical Clinic for cost-based reimbursement under the Federal Rural Health Clinic Program. Data requests from our cost report preparer, Whitley, who has been helping us with this process, have all been fulfilled, and we anticipate approval by the planned May 1 date. Yes.
Can I interrupt? Could you just, for the record, explain what cost-based, real quick, what cost-based reimbursement, what that is?
Certainly. It's similar to how we're paid currently on the inpatient side, where the costs of clinic operations are submitted to Medicare, and we are reimbursed based on the cost of operating the clinic, not based on per patient charges.
Thank you.
We've recently had some unfavorable reviews on Google and Yelp regarding care in our emergency department. This feedback is being provided to our ED team, both our physicians and our nurses. In fact, I reviewed it again today with management staff. While this form of feedback can be helpful, it does not represent the complete picture of the customer experience we provide. To see that, we used the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, approved customer survey questions. I'm pleased to report that our most recent data shows that our customer experience exceeds the benchmark reported by CMS. In this month's work study session, Dr. Wickup will be presenting the quarterly report on quality, which will include these figures, along with many other clinical and customer satisfaction and customer experience statistics. Hospital capacity during flu season. On January 8th, the Washington State Hospital Association and the Washington State Department of Health held a statewide conference call for all Washington hospitals to provide information regarding allowed surge responses should there be high numbers of patients with the flu requiring admission. We were informed that DOH would not consider it a violation of licensed bed capacity for hospitals to admit more patients than their license calls for, but only if those patients that cause them to exceed their licensed bed capacity are being admitted with flu symptoms. However, there's always a but, right? Due to the fact that critical access hospitals' capacity of 25 beds is a CMS requirement, not a State Department of Health requirement, they're not allowed to exceed the 25-bed capacity under this DOH provision. I wanted the board to know this because you may hear as flu season peaks next month about hospitals exceeding their bed capacity and what allowed that to happen and why we would not be allowed to do so. King County Search and Rescue. As approved by the board, we've executed the agreement with King County Search and Rescue. Work to prepare the site on their use is expected to begin in early February. Pretty excited about that. We had a patient holiday show. On December 13th, staff provided patients with a holiday show featuring piano performances, storytelling, and a repeat of the kazoo band performance from the employee holiday party. Some of you recall that. Patients and their family members expressed much thanks to staff. It really was a special moment. Really a feel-good moment for our patients and their family members. Lastly, in addition to the quarterly report on quality, we will have a presentation from Steve Daniel, our CFO, on bonds at our January work study session. Steve will educate attendees on how bonds work, along with the terms and payment schedules of the various bonds issued by the district. President Norris, that concludes my report.
Are there any questions for our CEO?
Yes.
Commissioner Pollard.
Just to clarify, it says we continue to work with SVHD. Is that an exchange of documents? Really, I mean, it's not sitting down with them and discussing these issues at this point, is it?
It has not been an exchange of documents yet. It has been more email back and forth regarding the potential structure, and it involved attorneys for the most part at this point about what's possible and what's not possible according to the RCW.
Yeah, I think that's what I was asking. I consider these emails going back and forth documents. So that's the stage we are. We're not in face-to-face contact.
We have had one session with our negotiating team, but nothing past the one.
Between the two
Correct.
organizations?
Correct.
When was that?
I
First I heard of it.
I can't. We did report on that. We did report on that. Okay.
More questions?
Does anybody else have a question?
I do have a question. The ED customer experience. I read a few of that just a few minutes ago, and so it's in Google and Yelp. Do we have a comment section on our website when there is some information or some notes or concerns that the public would like to express?
There is, and there's an email address that people send their comments to.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that they go to Google and Yelp and
That's
give it all to the whole world to know.
It's actually more typical to Google and Yelp your feelings than it is to tell the company directly.
Oh, it's just a shame. Anyway.
And I think it comes up when you look at our webpage. If you use
Comment section.
It comes up if you Google us, then you can read the reviews.
Yeah.
And there'll be reviews there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I had a question concerning
Yeah, go ahead.
along the same lines. I actually went and read all of the reviews, and I'm concerned that it's not only the ER that they're making comments about. They're making on physical therapy department and the swing bed program and pain clinic, and it's a plethora. I'm very concerned when I see this. I can see one or two, here and there, because you're never going to satisfy 100% of the people all the time. But this is discerning.
Yeah. The reason I mentioned the CMS survey is because that is a statistically significant representation of our patients. I could fight anecdote with anecdote. I've got glowing letters, but that's not the point here. The point is that we should be looking at the CMS data, the survey information that we get from actually contacting through our CMS survey provider, the feedback on a larger scale with a larger number of responses.
Well,
that said, these specific comments are provided to our management staff so that they can respond to them and talk with their teams about the kind of feedback that they're seeing.
Yeah, well, that said, we're a small town area, and when you get a comment like this is upsetting as a commissioner.
And I want you to know it's not ignored.
Yeah. I would like to see.
We do not ignore this.
I don't doubt that. What I would like to see is what has the management done, or whoever's in charge of these specific areas, to address these concerns, and is there going to be some kind of response to each one of these? That's the textbook way to do it. And so I'd like to see, is that going to happen?
Yes.
Okay.
Here's what public relations component can we do to address it?
It intrigues me because I didn't know anybody else had been looking, and I had looked, and I had contacted Tom and told him, I'm seeing these things. They're disconcerting, and obviously I'm not the only one that has seen it. So.
Yeah, so
And I know he got on it right away.
in the past, maybe a couple of years ago, I think I saw one or two, and it really not a big deal. They, one a year or something like that, or a couple. And that's going to happen no matter what service, what hospital you're with, because I have all kinds of clients who have lots of issues with Swedish, so that does happen, but we have so few people coming to our hospital in retrospect to a Swedish or an Evergreen or an overlay therapy. So
I think it'll be really good to see the big picture when we do our work study, to see the kind of responses that we're getting, because we are currently exceeding national benchmark in patient satisfaction in nearly all of our departments. That doesn't mean that we don't respond to these, but I just want to let you know that when you take a look at the big picture, we're doing very well.
yeah,
But the public don't know that.
they don't know how to
They
go
don't
to
know
those.
that.
They
How do
don't.
we counter
Exactly.
that?
And so I'm working on how to get our CMS data in the public eye. So
In the reply.
in the book.
In these replies.
And putting charts and graphs in there as well.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks. I
Commissioner Pollard,
appreciate it.
I understand you have a question.
Just to tag along, I think that's excellent that we do the CMS survey and so forth. But for the people around here, they care more about comments made by local folks. I didn't notice these until about 3 months ago, and I was kind of shocked, frankly, at some of the comments. Now, what other hospitals and commercial organizations do is they don't just let those comments stand. Their CEO or their appropriate person
Yes.
responds immediately when those appear. And there's often an apology and constructive action suggested and so forth. I think we should focus on that, and I think your idea of having a work study to consider all of these ideas and patient satisfaction and the whole ball of wax is a good idea. So I'd like to see us schedule that as soon as possible.
We're for our next work study, we are going to talk about these statistics.
I noticed that will be discussed, but I hope we can include the concept of how we can best respond rather than just evaluate and measure.
No, that work study, good for dialogue.
Okay.
I have other questions, but others can ask if they have any.
Is there anybody else that has a question?
Yeah, on the top, 340B drug program, the CMS made a final decision to reimburse hospitals less than what was expected in the.
Yes.
Did you know? You're aware of that?
I'm aware
right?
of that. The CMS decision to change the reimbursement
Right.
level for the 340B drug program only affects those hospitals who are reimbursed through the outpatient prospective payment system.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And we are not. We're cost-based. So all critical access hospitals are exempt from the change in the 340B program.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Pollard.
You mentioned that operating expenses are 7%, $188,000 under budget in November, etc. To what do you attribute this?
They were particularly less than budget in November, and Commissioner Spiker may talk about this. On an ongoing basis, as you know, we have been using our benchmarking program to help keep our costs down. One of the things is we had a credit back on some we had a credit back that we applied regarding some ambulance transportation. Where we are getting an adjustment and a refund back on some ambulance transport, so that affected it as well.
I'm actually going to get in a little more detail than I normally do. So if you could wait maybe and then ask questions.
That's good.
Yes, Commissioner Pollard.
Regarding the EHN, Eastside Health Network, it says it mentions managed care organizations. Could you give us an example of who those are?
I don't have the list right off the top of my head, but I can produce that for you.
Thank you. Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
Well, we used to have 25 beds plus 3 swing beds, which we don't have anymore.
No.
But do we have one extra bed that could be possibly used? Because I think we can get a waiver from CMS during this unusual situation. If we have one extra room and bed.
We physically we have one room here that is capable of double occupancy, so we could have 26 inpatients here, but that would require a change at the federal level. So it's something that we have to talk about with other critical access hospitals to put a joint effort together.
We might want to explore that just in case the need is more serious than we can project at this time.
Any other commissioners have any other questions for Superintendent Parker? All right, then we will go ahead and move on. Counsel,
Yes, thank you.
would you like to share something with us?
I do. And President Norris, congratulations on your election and reappointment. And to you, again, Secretary Spikers, and to the new Vice President, Commissioner Herron. I'm going to use my allotted 5 minutes this evening to talk about Robert's Rules of Order, a topic that's very important to us. It's the voting procedure, and in more precisely, it's about abstentions, a topic of which is very close and dear to Commissioner Pollard and I. We've had some late-night conversations about abstentions and how that works. So if you're following along in your HIM manual, under Robert's Rules of Order, it would be pages 406 and 407, and so I've lifted that from Robert's Rules of Order verbatim. Just remember that there is one person, one vote. You don't get to vote twice just because you're a commissioner and the president or the secretary. You only get one vote in these settings. That's true even if a person is elected or appointed to more than one position. So there is a right of abstention. You cannot vote abstain, but you can abstain from voting. Now that's an interesting concept. I can't vote abstain, but I can abstain from voting. And Commissioner Herron may recall that's what she attempted to do one evening when I told her, I think you need to have a reason to abstain, because many public districts that I work with have specific bylaws or requirements or rules that says you need to disclose. I was wrong, and Commissioner Pollard and I did some research, and I'm going to provide you some additional research as well. Commissioner Herron should not have been required to vote that night, and here's why. Although it's the duty of every member who has an opinion on a question to express it by his vote, he can abstain, since he cannot be compelled to vote. And I've informed you that you have a duty and an obligation, a fiduciary duty and obligation to the citizens who elected you to be considerate and to vote and speak your mind. But you're not compelled to do so. Unless, and here's the exceptions, there is a statutory requirement, the RCW, Revised Code of Washington, requires you, or you have a bylaw that requires you. And you have neither, except in few instances, and I'll talk about those here really quickly as I'm running out of time. So, you can abstain from voting on a question if it has a direct personal interest. So no member should vote on a question in which he has a direct personal or pecuniary, not a peculiar, but a pecuniary, meaning money or resources, interest, not common to other members of the organization. It goes on to tell you, for example, if a motion proposes the organization enter into a contract with a commercial firm you have an interest in, you should abstain. And then you should not vote on questions that are affecting oneself, affecting you individually. You should abstain if it's a direct personal interest. You should not vote for himself or an office or an officer position to which members generally eligible or should not vote when other members are included with him in a motion.
Does that mean voting for the board position?
It does not. You are not precluded from that.
So rather than abstain, how about recusing themselves?
You could recuse yourself. A recusal is an abstain because you are not voting.
Right.
But recusal usually means you're recusing for a reason.
Right.
Whereas again, if we go back to abstain, you don't have to have a reason to abstain
But when we
under
look-
your bylaws.
Yeah, but when we look at the pecuniary profit,
Pecuniary,
there is that reason that you need to recuse
you
yourself.
would, and that's statutorily. So if we put this hierarchy together, you've got the RCWs and the statutes that deal with conflict of interest, they deal
Right.
with ethics. You must comply with those as an elected official. Underneath that are your bylaws. You must comply with your bylaws, or in cities or other organizations they call ordinances oftentimes. And then underneath that, then, you've adopted Robert's Rules of Order. Not all organizations have. And many organizations say you're guided by them. Specifically, your bylaws, and by resolution, you adopted the Robert's Rules of Order, and your CEO reminded me of that. In an effort to promote decorum and the efficient conduct of business, all meetings of the board shall be conducted in accordance with the Robert's Rules of Order. And since you don't have a conflicting bylaw that says you have to vote, then you can abstain. Your bylaws also require, though, any commissioner, upon discovering or suspecting that they have a conflict of interest contrary to the policies and standards, or with the provisions of the bylaws, including if required, abstain from discussing and voting. So you do have a bylaw on that when you have a conflict. So 2 additional documents here as I wrap up that you may want to review is the MRSC, Municipal Research Services Center, put together an article. It's back in 2013, but it's a nice little summary of what Robert's Rule is, and it goes on to give you a little scenario. And it reiterates, state law does not address abstentions by members of local governing bodies. So the circumstances under which a member in a city, county, or special purpose district, like a hospital, may abstain, and the effect given to abstention is up to each local body to decide. So interestingly enough, if you turn to the next page, I'll show you what some other organizations have done, which I found rather unique. Issaquah does not permit abstentions unless a council member has an obvious conflict. You cannot abstain there.
That's in their bylaws.
That is in there. Bylaws, it's a legal, it's a fairness issue, and unless there's a legal disqualification, the member is excused from voting only by majority vote. So if we had that, Commissioner Aaron would have had to say, I'm going to ask the body if I can abstain, and they would have to vote to allow her to abstain, which I found quite interesting. We don't have that here, obviously.
Now, could she just not vote?
Well, silence is often viewed as a vote if she failed to vote. But I think the board then would have to inquire as to whether she is abstaining or just maintaining her silence. And I'll look into that further, Commissioner Pollard. You're always questioning my lack of continued expertise. I appreciate it, because now we'll look at if she just sits there and doesn't vote. I'll have to look into that further for you. The Port of Townsend has some exceptions. Council members must vote on matters unless the council moves to excuse a member for special stated reasons. They would have to give a reason. And Shoreline City Council counts a member's silence as a yes vote. Now, that's what they do. But Commissioner Pollard's question is, what if you were silent here? It would not be a yes, it would not be a no. And finally, I've given you just a one sheet further, and this is from the Jurassic parliamentarian Ann McFarland, so I think you individuals know who Ann is. She gets a question that says, what happens if I abstain? Does that count as a yes vote? And she responds, no, it doesn't. Under Robert's Rules of Order, you can vote aye, or you can vote no, but you can't vote abstain. To abstain is to do nothing. It is not a vote, and it doesn't count as a vote. It does come into play, though, as to whether or not you get a majority. Yeah, majority. Because if two of the commissioners were to abstain, and then you had a yes vote and no vote, you could end up with a tie. And as you know, you have to have a majority of the members that are voting. So it could become interesting. Well, with that, that's your Robert's Rules for this evening. Sure, Commissioner. I don't want to take up more of your time. You've got more important things, but I'll try to answer your question.
First, the last two items on your yellow sheet here seem to both address conflict of interest.
Yes.
And also the point that I think it's Emma that raised is the difference between abstaining and recusal.
Correct.
Now, in 2012, the board president recused himself. I think recusal is an action by a person to withdraw, whereas that has nothing to do with abstention and voting. But, for instance, we cannot vote to recuse somebody. Somebody has to recuse himself or herself.
That's correct. Okay, that's
Just want to
correct.
clarify that.
But just again, remember, even though you see it as recusal under this last 2 points, Robert's Rules of Order, and again, you have to comply with that. They say that if you have a direct personal interest, then you would abstain, even though I think your definition is more precise in terms of recusal for this body. But Robert's Rules of Order doesn't go into that. These are the only places in Robert's Rules of Order, which is, I think last count, 600 pages. Actually, we're just a little over that now. We're up to 668. In the 668 pages, these are the only times that abstain is mentioned.
Do you know that all the commissioners have received the abbreviated version of Robert's Rules of Order? The new edition, and it's only about an inch thick.
I didn't know that. So I have the 11th edition, so y'all make sure you get the right one. So every now and then I look at my 10th.
It's a 2015 version, I believe, or 16.
Yeah,
something like that.
it's up to date, and we could all do a copy of it.
Good, excellent.
I'll bring one and show you.
Okay, well, this is the 11th edition, and I'm trying to think, copyright on this one was 2013.
More recent.
So this is the most recent. So thank you for your...
Ours is equally recent.
Yeah.
I have a question. Okay, so this says in the Robert's Rules of Order, you can vote yea or nay, or Yay, yes, or you can vote no,
Yeah.
but you cannot abstain. And if we say we're using Robert's Rules of Orders, then for us, we cannot abstain.
Yes, you can. You just have to read this carefully. You can't vote abstain. You can abstain from voting, though. So you can't say, my vote is abstain. What you have to say then, and that's what I got confused with Commissioner Aaron back in October when I was fairly new to your board, she can't vote abstain. Because she says, I vote abstain. I said, you can't vote abstain. But she could have said, I am abstaining from voting.
So I'm not voting.
So no.
Correct.
Yes, I am not going to
Is
vote.
that a distinction?
I didn't challenge you on that, sorry.
No. Now you know you.
I have my
Cheat sheets.
Very good.
Okay.
So now you understand how you can split hairs and why there are so many parliamentarians running around, because they're always splitting these hairs.
Okay, so in the future, when we run a vote for us as a group, we can say yay, nay, or just not vote.
You could be silent.
The silence can also mean yes.
Well, no, it doesn't necessarily mean yes, because it can't be counted.
It's up to the
It's
commissioner
up
to
to
put forward that
Yes.
I am restrained.
Right. I would encourage the president, if somebody is silent, to please inquire of Commissioner Herron whether she is voting aye, nay, or choosing to abstain from voting.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Okay.
you, Madam President.
Thank
Okay,
you.
One other question, and that
Yes.
has to do with the appearance of a conflict of interest.
Yes.
How does one deal with that? Because sometimes the appearance of a conflict of interest is as threatening and damaging to
Yes.
the organization as an actual conflict.
Well, it's a slippery slope, and it's a very tough decision. Oftentimes it's rather subjective. A commissioner may feel like they have an appearance of conflict or impropriety, and they choose to abstain. But you have to usually show actual. Somebody has to show what is your conflict of interest or what you believe. But again, Robert's Rules of Order says you really can't inquire.
You have to bring evidence for that?
You don't have to know.
No.
Now, if you were questioned later, there may be an RCW statute that says you had some kind of a related interest in an action in which you took a vote on. That would be subject to further review. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm now asking for a motion for a consent agenda. Do I have a motion for that?
I make that motion.
Do we cover all three of them for the consent?
Approval of
Okay,
minutes,
approval?
approval of
Okay.
warrants, and physician credentialing.
Okay.
So all,
A group.
Madam Chairman, and Skip, maybe you can get into this. I do not wish to approve one of these items in the consent agenda. Now, my understanding is that on the text from Commissioner to ask for removal of, so I would like to remove item 2, approval of warrants and so forth. I think that needs more discussion than a consent agenda affords.
okay, then we will remove that. The consent agenda would be that for approval of the minutes and the physician credentialing. Is that correct?
Yes, and perhaps we could do what we've been doing in the past, which is to make that an action item. Item 2 could be an action item under the
Finance?
Finance Committee report.
Do they have to be within a motion when you are removing something from the agenda?
The
So that
consent
we
agenda
can
has
vote?
to be agreed upon all of the members, and it's called a poll. So Commissioner Pollard has asked that you pull one of the items out of the consent agenda and put it back on the regular.
Okay, and then does the president ask, does everyone agree to remove it?
No, President.
No,
You
it's
don't have
a
to
full.
Just polls to say, oh, I see, okay.
Any council member, any commissioner can ask that it be pulled, and without or over objection of any others, it is pulled.
Oh,
Consent agenda is kind of an easy, fast way to do things. And if we have somebody
Yeah.
that doesn't want to do it that way, then we have to honor that.
I see.
So,
But it has
Okay.
to be pulled.
yeah,
correct.
and that's what Commissioner Pollard has done. So that means that we are approving the minutes from the December 14th, 2017 regular meeting and the physician credentialing as part of a consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda as modified.
Second.
There's a second. Any other further discussion?
Yes, so where are the, Madam President, Commissioner Pollard? Number 2, where does it go?
It will go down under its committee. So when we get to finance committee,
So it goes to finance committee
Yeah.
for discussion. Okay, thank you.
okay, all those in favor of voting now, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Why? All right, so next we have committee reports, and that is the Finance Committee that goes up first.
All right.
Commissioner Spikers.
All right, thank you, Madam President. As I indicated earlier, I wanted to go into a little bit of detail, and the reason is we've been sailing along pretty well for about, I don't know, about 5-6 months, and there wasn't a lot to go into detail when you meet your budget or do much better than that. So I didn't think there was much of a concern in those other months. So, but this month we didn't meet our budget, and I wanted to go through a few factors involved with that. And one of the things I was looking at, and you may not have this in your packet, but I'm going to describe the information as is listed in our monthly meeting at the Finance Committee meeting. And there were some kind of odd things. I was wondering, these, of course, are all public records and can be obtained by anybody. I saw the taxation for bond principal and interest in that. Why are we getting taxed more than what we anticipated? And apparently there was a corrective mistake, and it matches the taxation for operations. And anyway, so it's fairly close, and that's why we are off on that indicator, or on that particular expense. The salaries.
Tell us what page you're on, Commissioner Spikers.
You know, you don't have it.
Okay.
I don't think they have it in the packet that is given out. Is it? Do you have this?
2552? Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So
we have
do.
it.
Okay.
I thought so.
Page 4.
Yeah, page
Is
4.
it your page 4? What's your page on that?
323.
In the finance packet, we have more pages, so this is page 4. But in your packet,
Yeah.
which I should probably go to our packet.
It's right here.
Okay, so.
But I have so many packets in front of me.
That's okay.
Keep going.
So, okay, so it's page
It's the
third
third page.
Third page.
That fails
There you go.
warrants.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you go to the left-hand side, and you look at the taxation for operations, and then go down about 2/3 of the way, and there's taxation for bond principal and interest, which struck me as a red flag, just because what? You know, we're getting more taxation now for bond, you know, than we anticipated. That's kind of seemed wrong. But anyway, there was a corrective mistake on that, and the two match. I don't know where the other 3,000 went. Maybe Steve can explain, 3,500. But that's the corrective mistake between the taxation for operations, the second line on the left, and down at taxation for bond principal and interest. And he assures me that they match up. So anyway, I will definitely rely on that. The other questions I had were, salaries were up, and if you look under operating expenses, there's been some staff vacancies, which I'm going to follow up, I guess, with Tom, like we've been able to fill some of those staff vacancies.
Yeah, we actually have, and I'm doing new employee orientation next week with another.
Okay, well,
staff.
right, hand in hand there. See, we've got an update right there. So we did have some staff vacancies, which did create higher salaries, because we have to pay people per diem, which is a lot more, usually about twice as much.
A lot of overtime.
And a lot of overtime. So that's why. And obviously the professional fees, between the professional fees and the overtime, it's about $30,000 right there. The lease and rentals, we have been above our anticipated budget. And the reason being, and if you go down to the other expenses, is because it's better to lease financially for us than it is to purchase the item. If you go to the left
All
side,
cases, or in most cases, or in some cases?
some cases, and so Steve and the staff have been looking at each item to see if, and this has been going on for about a year, if I recall, if each item makes sense to purchase or to lease, which one is of more advantage to us on our books. And so that's why we're above.
And I think one of the things on some of the leases, they maintain them. So on, is that not correct, Steve, that some of our leases, the maintenance?
They have some maintenance.
Factor in the maintenance agreements.
Yeah, that it comes with the maintenance agreements. Yeah, so other times it doesn't.
With Steve, and another advantage is you stay up to date on the technology. That is very important because the way things are today, things go obsolete within a couple of weeks after you get them. Exactly. But, that's a cost.
So anyway, there's higher expenses, and now for the revenue issue. The revenue issue is very simple. If you recall me bringing to the board a request to staff to find out how much do we get reimbursed on various private pays versus Medicaid versus Medicare. And you do not have this, and I have a bar graph, and I'm looking in front, of course this is part of public disclosure, you could take a look or ask Steve or anybody here, and they would give you this sheet. And if you go back to when I was complaining about that back in April of 2017 and saying, well, why, what's going on? A lot of times our payer mix changes. So when we have, even though we've had low Medicaid, our Medicare has not been as high as we would have liked it to be this month. And that is that can be a change per patient of $100,000 per month. Just one per patient that's going private care versus Medicare. So that's the payer mix is where the 100,000 plus of operating income why we're below. Even though the census was fairly good, it was almost there.
I'm surprised at the spread that you're offering there now. When you talk about private insurance, I don't think there's that much spread. I think what you're maybe talking about is Medicaid.
No. Some of our private pays are about 3, maybe 4 times as much as Medicaid.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Those are lousy insurance.
Yeah. So there are some, we get paid. It's better than Medicaid.
Anywhere around 800 to 1,000.
Maybe 5 times. 4 to 5 times. So it still is 1/4 to 1/3 as much as we get reimbursed.
Pretty much across the board with private payers?
It varies on the private pay. It depends. L&I pays kind of good, and then, Primera pays one rate. Regents is another rate. I mean, we have a collaborative where we negotiate with as many hospitals as we can to get the best rate possible. I don't know how Swedish gets away with their reimbursement, but I hear they've been getting tagged too recently. So that's if you're down on your Medicare, and even by one person, what you set out to accomplish or what your goal was, that's 100,000 or 80 to 100,000. So, unfortunately, but the bright side, I'm looking at this bar graph, and ever since we have implemented a procedure for Medicaid release, and I should say all patients releasing, we've been able to counsel and provide adequate social work and a place for them to go after they are rehabilitated so to speak.
Yeah, we don't have that bar graph.
No, it's, we've been right about one or a little bit, yeah, we've been at one or a little bit above one Medicaid patient in our swing bed inpatient for pretty much the last 8 months, which has made a big difference on our bottom line. So, anyway, hopefully that explains why we lost, or why we're below, or what we should have by about, what, 100 and, I think we're 120,000?
You're off, oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's about it.
So, when I see something like that, I want to make sure that the board understands why we are where we are this month. On the other side of things, I think we're going to be really looking good for December, and we will be pretty close to budget, I guess, pretty close. And that means we're going to be the first positive budget in ever, except for 2012, and I keep bringing this up, when we were bringing in our tribal payments on our hospital and using them for operations and revenue. So that's good.
Thank you, Commissioner Spikers.
If there are any other questions, I'd be more than happy. I really did want to explain that process.
Okay, then, we're going to get,
Steve, wants to say something. Oh, I have a question about the report.
Okay.
Yeah, going back to what you said at the beginning on taxation for operations and taxation for bond principal and interest. I see what you're saying about taxation for operations, and that is that you're paying more than we budgeted in taxation for operations, significantly. Okay, that second line. However, down below where it says taxation for bond principal and interest, we're paying less than we budgeted.
Right. That's what the red flag came up when I saw this, and so when I asked Steve, it's a corrected mistake. They put one in the other place.
We didn't allocate as well as we should have.
Oh,
We'll be better in the next 2018.
So this is really not significant.
No, it washes out.
Okay.
It pretty much does. There's a $3,500 difference. So.
Now I have a question that I've asked before, and it's not a pleasant question, but what if the merger affiliation process is not successful? How long can we continue as we're doing right now? I think you've given us different projections and so forth, but you know, people ask us this question.
Well, it varies. I mean, I look at it 1 month when we lost earlier in the year, when we lost $200,000, or whatever it was, and you know, my thing is like, well, we can't keep doing that, logically.
How long do you think we can?
However, there are months when we are like 4 months in a row and we met our budget and better. I'm going, wow, if we just keep meeting our budget, we'll be fine forever, right? But we know that that's not going to happen because our payments, reimbursement payments will decrease as our allocations for depreciation decrease, and instead of 3,000 or whatever it is, 2,800 this year projected, or 2,900 per patient day Medicare reimbursement, we're going to be looking at maybe 2,200 in 7 or 8 years or 9 years. I don't know. I'm just pulling it out of the air, but I'm just telling you that we have to be that much more efficient, and it's almost impossible because we've become very efficient through the process, through Truvan, doing the benchmarking, and we've really done a great job so far. I don't know how much more we could really do. I don't think we could do $700 a day, you know, per patient. But the thing that we have to do is develop our outpatient procedures, and if we can do that, that's where it's at.
I think as a hospital district and as a hospital period, we're not alone. There are a lot of other entities that don't know where they're coming, where they're going, or what's going to happen what insurance companies are going to do from one minute to the next, or what government's going to do from one minute to the next. So we're all kind of treading water every year, not knowing what's coming down the pipe. And that's not just little hospitals. That's also the big hospitals and the big boys. They're going through the same kind of strategic planning and cutting and, same kind of work we're doing, trying to be
yeah, and I
efficient.
thought, one of the things I thought is, we've got property here, for a medical office building. We've got property across the street. There are a lot of physicians that I think in this area, that live in the area, at some point probably won't want to be commuting to Seattle every day. And this may be a great place for a group of physicians, or surgeons specifically, to set up some kind of a shop here. And I thought, as an alternative plan B, this has not been discussed with anybody. This is my plan, nobody else's. So don't get me that it's been initiated under closed doors or anything like that. Nobody's talked to anybody. And I thought that if, that medical office building space could be leased for $1 a year to somebody, and they could build a nice little place and develop our space here, that would be a way to, get a lot of outpatient procedures here. So.
Would this be a topic for a future work study session?
Well,
Options A, B, C, D, and just have a little bit better handle.
Well, Tom and I have briefly talked about it, and I would like to see more on this myself. I'd like to see some kind of plan laid out, not implemented. We can't implement anything. We're under an agreement right now.
Right. Well,
but we certainly can start making some kind of plan and what it might take to be able to, or at least discuss. Let's see what it would take to start something, start doing something like that.
Yeah, I think discussion is what we need to do continually.
So that's hopefully that gives you an idea of an answer to your question. Maybe not the way you wanted, but.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Then we will move on to the medical committee. I don't know.
Wait a minute, we have to vote on the
The
warrant.
payroll warrants are not.
Are we going to do that now?
Payroll
Okay.
warrants has not been.
Yes, I'll go ahead. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the warrants as laid out in your packet. And I know you have it there.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah, there's $2,486,137.45.
Where's your glasses?
That's it. Total disbursements.
I'll second it.
All right.
Any further discussion on the warrants? Then we can vote. All those in favor of paying the warrants say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I refrain from voting. There's two.
After that discussion?
You're abstaining.
That's your vote.
I
And then I'm restraining.
Is that okay, Skip? That would be perfectly. I'm restraining from voting. Yeah, and I
Yeah,
could
we'll stay
recuse
here.
myself from voting.
Get out the way.
Yes.
I'd like to just note that as part of the Finance Committee report, Steve has planned on showing a few slides and talking.
Yeah, actually, this was I wanted everyone to see where we are on our bonds and what's going to be paid off shortly. So, Steve, take it away.
Okay, this is a schedule for all of our bonds. And these are bonds we have issued. We talked last month, we purchased some bonds for investment. This is the debt we have issued. And you can see on it that we issued the revenue bonds and the LPGO bonds. Revenue bonds are paid out of our revenue. LPGO bonds are tax back. They're paid out of taxes. principal, we go across, that's the amount of debt we have in bond package. Now, when are all of the bonds paid off? The revenue bonds, the tax-exempt bonds, and what tax-exempt means is that the holder of the bond does not have to pay taxes on the income from the bond. So what you can do is issue those at a lower interest rate. So the revenue bonds, tax-exempt, series 2015, that's when they were issued, $45 million. Those will be paid off in 2045 in total. Okay. For taxable revenue bonds, the owners have to pay taxes on the income. 4.1 million. Those will be paid off in total in 2021. The LTGO bonds, those are tax back, paid from tax revenue. Will be issued in 2015, tax exempt. 27 million. Those will be paid off in 2038. The LTGO bonds, again, tax back. That are taxable, 5.4 million. Those will be paid off in 2024 in total. And the LTGO bonds, tax back, will be issued in 2011, 15.3 million. Those will be paid off in 2040 in total. Now, we incrementally, every year, we pay off part of these bonds. So, this is a graph that, I apologize, it's somewhat small, because it's a lot of bars, but it shows the cumulative, by the end of the year, how much debt have we paid off of these bond issues. 2016, we paid off $1 million. By the end of 2017, we will pay off $2.25 million. By 2020, we'll have paid off $6.6 million. And we go to by 2045, they're all paid off. So we are paying off debt every year. Okay, that's the amount we pay off. The next slide is kind of the opposite. This is the amount of debt that we have at the end of the year. So at the end of 2016, we have $97.5 million. By in 2020, we'll have $90.3. We'll pay some more off. And then, by 2040, we'll have $15 million, and we'll have paid it off by 2045. So, as I was going through this and saying I want to give a short talk on bonds, I realized I could probably keep you here a lot longer. No, Tom, and I said, I'd like to give an education session on bonds at the work study session next week or 2 weeks from now. And the topics I want to cover are what are bonds, more in-depth explanation, how the payment system works, how principal and interest get to the bondholders, the number of bondholders we have, how the principal payments are divided up, what are the payment dates to bondholders, and a little bit more on the difference between revenue bonds and LTGO bonds, and a little bit more on the payment structure between the two. Why are they structured differently? Also, if you have questions, something you want to know about our bond issue, please email me by the end of next week.
I got it.
Next week, I'm going to have to do some research probably on some. I may ask you, okay, clarify the question, but I want to have a presentation that meets your needs and answers your questions. So.
I was surprised that we will be able to retire 2 of the bonds by 2024 and 1 in 3 years, at the end of 3 years. So, are those bonds a higher interest rate bonds?
Yeah, they are, because they're taxable. They're about half a point in interest above the rest.
Okay. Well, that's good. We're paying off the higher ones. So that's.
Would you entertain simple questions at this point, or
if I can answer them, I will. If not, I'll tell you I'm going to recover.
Well, I assume that the people that have bought our revenue bonds are getting some kind of interest payment.
Oh yeah, there's an interest payment every 6 months.
Okay, and are these bonds being traded on the open market, or how does that work?
They can be. I do not know if they are being or are not being traded.
That's all I wanted to ask right now. I'll forward any other questions to you by email. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, old business. We have, wait, medical committee. I'm sorry, I'm jumping too far
That's
ahead.
all right, go ahead, let me out of it.
I don't know which lady is going to do that. Joan?
Yes. Yep. Annual slang training is now a condition of employment. It explained, you can read alpha, beta, gamma, what it means on your handout. Okay, influenza A and RSV regional incident rates are beginning to rise. We have no alerts or capacity problems at this point. Go down to the lab, and it's really a good thing. Molecular testing methodology rollout starts this week, which was last week. The reference lab contracts and process negotiation with the collaborative. Regardless of which vendor contract is awarded, we will experience benefit, one greater, one lesser. It will be a benefit either way. Imaging, there was a problem with the MRI, the HVAC system, which makes the MRI work, was broken and had to be repaired, so it caused a delay of imaging for several patients. Friends of Youth Collaborative, planning is going on with the goal of launch at the end of Q1. That sounds really interesting, and you can probably ask me after the meeting for any information. The privileging, which we have already voted on for Lawrence Lee, Rikesh Panik, Prabhakar Chesava, Dwayne Anderson, Enrique Anguidanos, Jonathan Helper, Karen Tom, Ron Bennett, Bob Blanchard, Elizabeth Fuchs, Candy Nadiri, Tran, Diane Sakrajek. We approved that. Other thing that's going on is overview of the antimicrobial stewardship program, the mission, current activities, review of participation in 2 national initiative committees. We are proposing that this is a work study section topic for a more in-depth review. And exciting, the collaborative telemedicine program work with Evergreen updated, anticipate launch of first service line in Q1. The other thing that we are embarking on is an annual review of committee charter with a proposed red light version distributed for review and exchange of other edits in coming weeks, with plans to approve at the February meeting. We are the only committee with a charter.
Actually, facilities has one too, and we'll review that as well. So.
Okay. All righty. That's it. Yes?
If a person contracts the flu here in August and goes to Overlake and dies at Overlake, does that count as a casualty for Snoqualmie or Overlake and Bellevue? In terms of reporting, the state is reporting that there are 20 deaths so far in the state of Washington for flu. And I'm just wondering, we probably also keep count of where they occur. And I was wondering, in that case, would it be identified as a death that occurred in Snoqualmie or Bellevue?
I'll confirm this, but I believe that those reports are based on the residence of the person who passed away.
Thank you. Do we have any statistics on deaths in Snoqualmie?
Not that I have seen. Only the state. What I see are the statewide numbers.
Thank you.
Okay.
All righty.
Now you can go to facilities.
Yes, we will move to facilities now. Thank you. Commissioner Young. Commissioner Pollard.
Facilities Committee, this reports on the meeting of December 18th. It was rescheduled from December 25th for some reason. And I want to tell you that the Facilities Committee is working very well as a group. We have a tremendous responsibility. This hospital and other facilities of the district are a tremendous investment of the people of the hospital district, all the way from the past to Carnation, to Preston and High Point. All of these people are paying taxes in one fashion or another to help support this district. And it's our job to make sure that our capital investment in this hospital and other facilities is maintained in good order and efficiently. Now, we have a 3-page report here. I just want to tell you that the facilities manager, Scott Mohammed, is a superb leader, and he can handle the whole job, frankly, and probably without a committee. But he does such a good job that we can rest assured that our facilities are being well taken care of. Now, what we do is we look at everything from landscaping to signage to all sorts of things that have to do with enhancing the attractiveness and usefulness of the property. And then we discuss these things. We try to reach consensus, but anything that requires approval, contracts, and that sort of thing, it comes to the board. So while we reach consensus and advice, we don't make decisions in the facilities committee. We bring those to the board where they're necessary. And the superintendent reported on one tonight, and that's the King County Search and Rescue, which we approved by board action. And now there's a report here as to how that's going. So at any rate, I just want you to know the scope of the responsibilities of the Facilities Committee. I'll just note a couple of things. Copies of the full report are on the back table. And one is that every 2 years, the Department of Ecology does an audit of our operations. And they're looking especially at hazardous waste. We passed their audit with flying colors with a couple of minor things that were no real problem. And so we're very proud of that. Scott led that effort. I mentioned last time we're going to have an additional planner at the front entrance. This is something you're going to see, so I'm mentioning it again. It hasn't arrived, but it will arrive, and that will serve many purposes. With respect to making the hospital community gathering place, on the back of the report, you'll see organizations that are using our facilities as a gathering place. We figure if we could get them to come here for their meetings, they're going to come back for their shots, they'll come back for their shots, they're going to come back for their swing day or whatever, acute care, or the clinic work. So anything we can do to involve the public is very positive. Now, we had a few more organizations starting to meet this year, and please pass the word. If you know organizations that are looking for a meeting place, we don't charge anything. We almost pay them, but we don't quite. But also, when you bring them in, they go by our thrift shop. They go to our cafeteria. They become familiar with the place. They see the display from the Native Americans in the lobby and enjoy the ambience of the hospital. So please bring people to use our facility. It belongs to the people. I'll answer any questions, or you can just peruse the report. It's quite complete and well done. Thank you, Valerie.
I have a question, and it's about Scott. You mentioned Scott frequently, and I think we all know who Scott is. Is there any kind of award or presentation that we can do to recognize Scott's faithfulness and going the extra mile to make sure some of these things happen? Do you have an idea,
Well, I try to praise him every time I see him. But we also have the Employee Recognition Program. And Scott has been recognized. I can't remember if he was recognized this year, but he's regularly being recognized.
He's being recognized right now.
Yes.
Yes. You know, I don't want to take anything away from Scott. I totally agree with Commissioner Pollard. He does an amazing job. That said, not everybody has a committee that reaches the board level. So, for example, we have a Pharmacy and Therapeutics Committee. That is not a committee of the board. That's an operational committee chaired by Ron Bennett. does a fabulous job. We have a nurse staffing committee. We have many other committees and many other departments with terrific folks. And we do have an employee recognition program that we've had for years called You're a Star, where employees nominate one another, and they'll actually write the thing that they're giving kudos to that fellow employee about, and they're posted up on the bulletin board right near the employee entrance. In addition to that, we this fall have been working on a revised and upgraded employee recognition program. It's not high cost, but it's high touch. I mean, there's lots of opportunities to now recognize employees, and we're just now rolling that out with our operations team. In fact, yesterday I just went over with our committee again all the decisions that we made about what are some of the additional things we can do to recognize one another here at the hospital. And if the board is interested, we can talk about that at some point once it's done and rolled out.
I personally think it would be nice if we worked with the executive staff so that occasionally we get to sign something that says that the board, as a board, not just admin, recognizes the value of our employees.
Don't the STAR designees receive a plaque or something, a certificate?
They actually, what we do is we have a drawing of everybody who's nominated, and they receive a prize, and all of their names are listed on the internal website called SharePoint, so everybody can see who was nominated and what they did that was great. And one of the things that we're rolling out is just some standardized notes that managers will have, and we can make those available to you too if you'd like to write a note to an employee and congratulate them. We're actually putting together a toolkit for all the managers to be able to have things to choose from for the, specific to the right occasion for thanking and congratulating, recognizing employees, and we can make some of those tools available to you as well.
I might add that during this past year, we brought in the housekeeping team, and we recognized them by name in the committee. We brought in the maintenance team.
That's awesome, Gene. I think that's great.
Recognized them by name in the committee and thanked them. Then they left and did their work. They didn't stay for the whole meeting. But at least they know that we know they're doing a good job, and without them, we couldn't have an excellent, clean hospital.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea, Gene.
Any other questions? I'm willing to try. If not, that concludes my report.
Okay, so moving on, we don't have any old business, but we do have some new business. And I think we all recognize that we did not do an increase in salary for our CFO, for Tom Parker. And I think, Steve, are you going to help us with this a little bit?
Yeah, you have a copy of the memo I wrote you?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'll just give a little verbal overview. I'm recommending that we give a salary increase of 2.33% to Tom. That's a dollar amount, $5,126 annually. That's based on the methodology we use to determine the salary increases for all staff. And what we do is we look at where the staff members' salaries is within the salary range. The lower they are in the salary range, the higher the increase. That moves people up within the range. And that is how we have done the CEO's salary increase in the past, except for 2017, where the executive staff made the decision not to take a salary increase to free up some more money for staff increases. So that's my recommendation, and I would also like to recommend, a thought for the recommendation is that the board put forth a motion that in the future we go with what we've done in the past. We adjust the CEO's salary based on how we adjust the rest of the staff's salary. An interesting point too is in the CEO's contract, it does not specify how the salary will be adjusted. It talks about how the first increase will be done, kind of a one-time, but does not say how future increases will be done. So,
Are there any questions of Steve before we?
Are all future increases based on what is the
COLA, the federal COLA?
COLA?
Here's what happens with increases. We look at that.
Okay.
We then, staff makes a recommendation to first the finance committee, and we describe our methodology, and we say this is in our budget. And then that is brought and discussed at the board level when we present our budget. So what we budget is an overall percentage. So we're going to do 2.5% in total this year. Not everybody gets 2.5. The ranges, the salary increases go from 2 to 3%. And they're spread out based on where the employees are within the salary range. And we will crunch all the numbers and we adjust it so it does fit within our budget.
Does it also include performance evaluation, objectives, and goals?
We do not have a pay-for-performance system right now. We do performance appraisals on employees, but they are not tied to their specific increases.
To a monetary item.
Right.
Well, I've got a few questions, or a couple comments anyway. I don't have any problem. Jonathan had done a great job for us getting us on budget this year, so I don't mind this particular increase, but no precedence. I would rather see a performance-based, any kind of increase. He's on a contract. He's not on a regular employment salary. And, if he wants to have those bonuses, I think it should be met with certain steps. And it should be bonus. It shouldn't be like an increase. It should just be a bonus. And it should be based on objective findings by the board. One, budget. I'm sure we could do 5 easy squeezy deals, or performance-based factors. Budget, complaints. If he's done all this last year, he got us going with a couple of great programs. We're going to get more money, and all of those. I'm sure we could do 4 easy factors that if he met A, he gets this percentage. He meets A and B, he gets this percentage. He meets A, B, and C, he gets this percentage. So that's kind of how I would like to see this. I do not really like the whole idea of just, grouping it with the rest of the employees. I really don't. He's on a separate contract.
But you're saying
did a
that
contract.
it's more result-driven.
Yeah, result-driven, and he's contractual. He is not in respect to a regular employee who has got a particular salary that is based on,
I'd like to change the tone of this just a little bit. It's the superintendent's position that we are talking about, and that's how we should be talking about it, not necessarily as an individual, except if you're talking bonuses, then maybe, but it's the position that we really need to, this is the superintendent's position. What do we pay the superintendent? How do we reward, or how do we increase pay? It's the position as a whole. And we need to think of that going forward, too, that it's not an individual, it's this position is being filled by an individual, but what do we expect out of this position, and how do we build a criteria for raises or for bonuses, whatever we decide.
And, I've asked the board, and I think I talked to Tom about it. I said, I don't think he was too keen on it back then, before we even thought about a salary for him. Okay, I think it was kind of like, well, yeah, but when am I going to start out? Like 50,000, and then, something like that. I think he was a little, I'd be concerned too. Some measly, salary, and then all kinds of performance-based things. That wouldn't be very fair. So,
would it be helpful to gather comparative information of other similar hospitals in terms of their salary structure?
No, I don't think so. I think I want to see our performance base, what our hospital, we've got a different kind of hospital here.
Oh,
So
I don't mean the specific, I don't mean the
So-
specific things that it's tied to. I'm talking about the way that it works.
I just, like, I agree fully with everything Mr. Spiker just said. And we have a unique hospital. As a matter of fact, I don't think we're finding a very hospital really in the whole United States for what we have here. I think we can use our own judgment. I also want to agree with what President Norris was saying, which is we got to look at this as the superintendent, not Tom Parker. Now, I happen to like Tom Parker. I consider him a friend. But when I'm doing the people's business, I need to look at the position and get my personal feelings out of it. And what I'm agreeing with Mr. Spiker's on principle is this is unlike other employees of the district because this is contract-based. And the contract is not coming up for renewal until May for a June renewal. And that's the way the contract was structured. I believe that any action now would be premature. And therefore, I'm going to request permission to abstain from voting if this goes to a vote. But I really think we should table these things until later. That it's not timely. And therefore, that's the reason that I'm going to not vote on this at this time.
Well, I think I think that the 5,000 is fine for, I think I'd rather see it in the form of a bonus, not in increasing a salary that's reflected for the following year. And I think that there's a lot more money that he could earn based on, I know what he can do. And I think that there's a lot, I mean, he could make a lot more. If it makes sense financially and for this hospital district and for this hospital, if he gets a bonus next year, 20,000 or something like that, I don't mind that. If it makes sense, if he's done the job that I think he's capable of doing, that's how I feel. And I don't think that we should be bumping up his salary this year that is permanent. If you want to give him a bonus, let's just give him the $5,000 bonus up front.
So if I understand what you're saying, David, is that the 5,000 is about what that 2% would be, correct?
So
You would rather give it as a lump sum saying, attaboy, you've done a good job.
Let's give it to him up front. He's earned it.
I don't think we can throw money around like that.
That's not throwing the money away. It's performed.
That was not in the contract.
The chair does not recognize Commissioner Pollard. I believe Commissioner Young would like to say something, and she has not spoken.
Well, having worked in the medical industry for a whole lot of years, I would like to know what other institutions are doing in terms of their superintendent, CEO, salary or contract or whatever else. I would like to see.
But each institution has its own character and personality, so it's very difficult to make a comparison on how each.
I'm saying look at a whole group
Yeah.
of them, and
It's not so much about the institute, it's more of the performance, the measurement of what we can. And if you look at our bylaws, I think I concur with Commissioner Pollard, there was nothing there, just bonus, something like that.
I'm pretty sure the $5,000 in any other hospital district is a very small bonus compared to a lot of CEOs.
Okay, yeah,
Believe
well,
me,
nothing that
the
can be
5,000 is nothing.
Okay, Commissioner Young.
I would like to see what other institutions are doing, not always our size or other size or critical access versus no. I would just like to see a composite list of what's available, what is being done at this point, rather than make a decision based on one thing.
Can I say something?
Sure, Steve.
I've got some thoughts.
All right.
None of us in this room, including me, are experts or even close on executive compensation. So it may make sense to do some research, possibly see if we want to bring someone in to help us with a motivating, organizational supported executive compensation structure program for the CEO. That's one. I would say that when someone gets a bonus in lieu of an increase, usually that bonus is higher than the increase because there's more risk that it won't happen next year. Increase, you could give a 2.3% because it'll continue on. If you give a bonus, probably should give some more because there's a risk that it won't happen next time. Just as what I have seen, and that's what I have seen. So, but again, I'm not an expert. I think if we want to design a system, we should look at, can we do it internally, but also look at what would it cost. I think it's a reasonable cost. We need someone to help us to design it, the board, committee, to design a system for executive compensation. And doing this year, what we've done for staff is probably, we know what we're doing and it makes some sense. Let's then get something that might fit our needs more going forward, for example.
Well, if I understand correctly, none of the executive staff a year ago got bonuses. Everybody, or even a raise.
No, none of the executive staff get bonuses. We did not take salary increases.
That's right, last year. So we are now in a new year, and everybody, I assume, Commissioner Spikers, that they were all getting the same bonus, or increase as all the other staff when we did the budget, correct?
That is, yes.
That's your recollection, David? Yeah?
Yeah, the board decides the CEO's increase. They delegate to the CEO to have the management team discuss increase.
Yeah, okay.
So that's how that works by statute, actually.
Commissioner Pollard?
The superintendent signed his contract. He agreed to work for a certain amount for 1 year until June 2018. It's at that point that we should adjust his salary, not in between. I think this is totally premature.
Is that his contract in front of you? Is that what you have?
As a matter of fact, I wish we had been provided, all commissioners had been provided with the contract so we could review it. But I'd like to address something that Steve said, and that is, it would be nice if we could have a motion that once we do this, we do the same thing every year. And Mr. Spikers promptly and properly spoke up and said, no, don't put this on some kind of automatic system. It's like when you subscribe to Time Magazine, it says, check here for automatic renewal every year. And maybe you don't want it, but now you're locked in. So I very much oppose that concept. Secondly, with respect to the executive salaries, yes, they forewent salary increases last year, but these other executives are on a different basis than the superintendent, who's on a contract basis. That's the difference.
I think you're correct.
Can I point of fact on the employment agreement that the superintendent has?
Yes.
It was signed effective 6th day of June 2016. The increased language said the board shall review the executive job performance and salary no later than 8 months from the effective date. That would be February 2017.
And that did not happen.
That did not happen. It is then silent on what happens after that. So there really is no guidance in the contract for ongoing after February 2017.
Just a point of more clarity. There, of course, everybody recalls doing a review, but there was no discussion about salary increase as is required under the contract. I will admit that at the time of my review, and it was for the most part, it was a good review, and felt a fair review. I did not at that time express a desire for compliance under the contract for salary review. And the reason for that is we simply did not have the budget It was not in the budget to give me an increase at that time. This was really May, June last year. So I did not push for a salary increase at that time because we just didn't, we had not budgeted for it. And that's why I thought, well, let's address it now because it's the new budget year, and this increase was included in our planning for the coming year because when we did the analysis, we took all staff, including me, and looked at what the 2.5 would be in the budget. So that's why I did bring it up when I hadn't already.
Commissioner Spikers, do you have a comment about that?
Well, like I told everybody, I think we need to set 4 factors up, or even 3. Make it so simple. It shouldn't be anything, and give them a good bonus. But it's on merit. And if you make the budget, that's only 1/3 of it. No, I mean whatever it could be $5,000 per factor. I don't know but certainly if someone does the job and does it well and they meet their what's expected of them, then they should be rewarded. That's how the system out there in the world works, And whether you're a private or a public entity, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. You really should have some merit to what your salary is. So I pose, getting 3 factors together by the next board meeting and setting that up. I mean, it seems to me it's obviously the budget is a big thing.
But bearing that, Commissioner Spikers, knowing all that, where do you stand in terms of the performance of the hospital right now?
Well, from the past year, I think
compared to the past. I'm just talking about our hospital, yeah.
Oh, compared to the past?
Right.
This is, like I said, it's the first year that we're going to be breaking even or better. We're going to be a positive cash flow this year. And a lot of that is due to having a new hospital and being able to depreciate large sums of money from the depreciation of the hospital.
So the 2.2% would be $5,000.
Yeah, somewhere around there. It's 2.3 is right around 5,000.
Right. So that may be something that can be put now and then review next time, because like the rationale behind it is that they didn't take anything in 2 years based on the reasons that we didn't have the money. And that's why I'm asking, where do we stand from the previous year to this year? How are we doing?
Oh, as far as our budget, our budget is we're fairly close. We're about 60,000 or something below budget, but we're still in the black. And this next month, December, I thought we were going to probably make up most of that 60,000. So we're going to be really close to budget, what we budgeted. We're going to be up in the black, probably a couple 100,000, I imagine. Pretty close.
Commissioner Pollard?
The way I look at it is that the superintendent agreed to certain performance expectations. There's a job description in here and so forth. And if he does that satisfactorily, he has earned what we agreed to pay him. A bonus is for extraordinary performance, and we haven't defined that. I think that's what Mr. Spikers maybe say.
I'm trying to say, having no crisis issues in our, I mean, Joan, you could probably come up with a good, quality type of medical 2-sentence.
Well, no, that's why I asked the question.
So,
it doesn't seem. Why should one employee, whether he's a contractor or she's a whatever, why should one employee be brought down? You aren't going to give an employee, any employee, less than what their raise is supposed to be, yet we're going to punish the superintendent.
No.
Well, no, but it feels like it if he has to meet performance criteria and regular staff doesn't.
It's a different status you're talking about.
Well, I mean, but everybody, Steve, whoever.
Well, I'm pretty sure that most CEOs do get performance-based bonuses. I'm pretty sure of that.
That's why.
And that's how it
One or
works.
the other. Bonuses are.
They have a base pay and it
performance-based.
stays the same, and they get performance-based bonuses, and that's how it works.
Okay,
So,
that's why I asked the
Yeah.
question,
So-
can we see what other institutions are doing?
What's the dialogue going on over here? I think we got some professional.
So, Madam President, my experience in working with other public hospital districts is that you do have contractual arrangement agreements setting a base salary. And then the board also sets what's called at-risk compensation. That at-risk compensation is if you meet certain criteria or goals or standards. One of the standards could be simply, are you still here at the end of the year? That could be an at-risk compensation, and you get 2% to 5% for that. And then other criteria are things like implementation of certain plans, quality control, outreach to the community, retaining staff, training staff, meeting certain criteria within the budget, development of new initiatives, completion of projects, whatever that might well be. And then there are thresholds where that at-risk compensation is 5%, 10%, 15%, even 20% of your base salary. And so that's fairly common. And with all due respect, if this board hasn't done that before, you would benefit from looking at what other public hospital districts are doing, and you can see those approaches. You don't have to use their goals or objectives or performance requirements because you're unique. Every hospital district thinks they're unique and different and better than others, but you may well be. But you can still see what some examples and samples are so that you can build that, and if you would put it into your CEO's contract. I was surprised listening to this discussion that your CEO didn't have a specific contractual point where they should have reviewed and adjusted the salary. So that's a little unusual. You did a review, but you didn't have a component to.
That's true.
I don't know any other CEOs that would have stood for that. They would have been banging on your desk wanting to know when their salary is going to increase. So
That might be the
just
justification.
comment.
Yeah.
Point of information, and that is, I think when we read the contract, we see that there's an agreement to review the superintendent's performance in February. When did we actually conduct the review?
We conducted the review
May or June?
May or June.
Was it June? Oh, June.
Yeah, I think we finally got all the information in June. Everybody saw it, we talked about it, and we had a commissioner abstain from doing the review. So
I abstained because I thought the review was poorly done, and I can go into detail, but I won't. Therefore, I felt that the evaluation was invalid. But I do think that since the last one was done in May or June or whatever, that we should do another professionally designed, and we can compare it with other public hospital districts, evaluation of the superintendent, and perhaps build in some of the items that Mr. Spikers was proposing into the next contract. But we need a new evaluation after a year, and I would like to see us do that before we move on any salary issue. If we're going to compare this hospital with other hospital districts, as Commissioner Young is suggesting, let's make sure we start off with, or perhaps hold it exclusively to public hospital districts. That's the first step in making it comparable.
I want to, we are in a better position than we've been in a very long time. And I really believe we're there because of Tom Parker. And I think that it is almost an insult to not recognize him in some fashion with a raise that we've recognized everybody with, and probably even ourselves. So I'm having a hard time scrutinizing this to the point that it's kind of ridiculous. I think he deserves some kind of a raise. You're going to have to wait. I think
I'm just raising my hand. I'm not insisting to interrupt you.
He deserves a raise like any other employee that we have. Now, he may be under contract, and that may be a different way. And it's our responsibility to make sure that we If that's wrong, that we fix it. We don't just talk about it, but we decide how we're going to do it in the future. And how we're going to make sure that any superintendent, whether it's Tom here sitting next to me, or if it's another superintendent in the future, we need to be professional. And we need to have an idea of how we're going to do it. So I think we need to remedy the fact that he didn't get one last year somehow. I don't know if it needs to come from Finance Committee. We don't have any other, way to really do it. But, and we have a contract already there that's going to be reviewed again. I mean, we're coming on his second review.
But Commissioner Spikers did mention that although we were seeing some progress there, we're still in the red.
No.
No, this is the first month. We're still in the black.
It's somebody else's turn, right?
So I agree we need to remedy this, but I think we need to wait until when this is the contract that's supposed to be revisited, that we have to review sometime in May or June. June. I think that would be. So if we do it now, knows what the future.
Well, what we've already done, we've already had a whole year where we did have an evaluation and we did not compensate based on his evaluation.
Point of order. Could you also list the contributions of other?
I think I said the least of anybody, and Joan has probably said very little.
I object to what you said about we can attribute any success we're having now to one person, and that's Mr. Parker. We can attribute the success of the hospital. That's what you said. We can attribute the success of the hospital to the extent that it is success to everybody working here. Please, let's not say that it's a result of one person. So I really object to that verbiage.
So we have a proposal from our CFO.
Yeah.
And I want to know if somebody wants to make the motion and what that motion would be.
Can I get another motion? You probably should view separately what we do now and what we do in the future, because I think they're not one thing. And my opinion, and I'm not, the CEO may not want to bang on the desk, but the CFO will tap on it.
Okay.
I believe somewhat strongly that we should do something for Tom at this point. I also agree with David,
yes,
and that we need to get a better system in place in the future that fits our organizational needs. So that's my tapping on the desk, not tapping.
I think that's legitimate. I personally, I agree. I think that's just
okay. I just have one more little thing. It seems like, even though it might be a bonus idea or whatever, if everybody else in the institution, or whatever we are, gets a raise, why are we singling him out to get something different? Why not put him on the baseline, the same process that everybody else goes through? We can change it next year all you want, but
is it normal practice that a CEO would be treated as the regular employees? I don't think so, because he's under contract.
They have a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the contract will specify what happens. Ours happens to not. It just dropped off after February of last year. So we've got a unique situation there. But, I think going forward, the organization should alter the contract and get a meaningful bonus increase system in place for the CEO that is tied to organizational objectives.
Commissioner Spikers.
Yeah, I think that needs to be done before the June renewal. Sent to Tom, that he can look at it and agree or not. I would think if I was him, I would want to have the opportunity to make more money if I'm doing my job. appropriately and met my expectations. Also sends a message, I think, to him as to what we expect from him, instead of just being out there, not really kind of telling him what to do. I do from time to time little things, but other people may not. And so it might be appropriate for the whole board to come up with 3 or 4 items that would be appropriate for this, and start working on that, maybe a committee for that, and bring that to the board. And maybe Steve could chime in and get a couple of examples from other hospital districts. So, and not Swedish or okay.
No.
So you have to go to some similar types of.
There was a suggestion about public hospital districts, which is a good one because. Well, that and they are required. We could just do a public records request to get their structure.
Yeah, just see what they do, and then I guess I was wrong. Maybe that would be the best to look at that. And then as far as this year, I'd be more than happy, to pay a bonus right now. I think he's done a great job, and maybe we can set something up that he can make more money down the line. So that's how I feel.
Commissioner Spikers, do you want to make a motion?
I'd make a motion to pay whatever that $5,100 and whatever it is immediately. I think he's earned that by giving us the opportunity to continue to be in black, and he's had some great ideas. Everybody has to agree. He's had some great ideas with saving money. He's done everything from the finance, most everything the finance division has required of him. So that is a very small bonus. And then I would like to get an opportunity to have a review of some items for future I would like to review his contract and provide a couple of incentive bonus things. Maybe three items. Our hospital district is not that big, so the things that we would require him to do would be pretty basic, and they would be objective. It would not be subjective items where we think he did this or didn't, and that would not be fair to him.
Okay, Commissioner Spikers, I'm going to ask you to restate a motion.
I make a motion to provide him with an immediate bonus. Right. The CEO, Mr. Parker, immediate bonus, as he requested in his salary increase, but only on a bonus basis. And then I would like to, my second motion.
Let's do one at a time.
We've got to do one at a time.
Okay. So that's the first one.
I second it.
Yeah.
Is there any further discussion on that motion? Commissioner Pollard?
Well, I think we have to look at what occurred in the past. And that is, in setting the salary for the superintendent, there was a big argument that he was going to take over 2 jobs, which was superintendent and COO, Chief Operating Officer, a position that he was currently filling. And I made the point that we were already overstaffed because no other public hospital district, to my knowledge, had a COO. And Mr. Parker said that he would send me some information where other public hospital districts in the state of Washington had COOs. But at any rate, we went from a salary of about $165,000 to his predecessor to $220,000 in his current contract. 175 is the previous. And it was another 4-1 vote. I suggested, I thought it was being really generous, $196,000 from $164,000 or whatever we were paying his predecessor. But there was a 4-1 vote, and everybody jumped on the bandwagon to come up with 220. So I think that we need to hold the line for a time at 220, at least until his next contract. The other thing is, if you'll recall, from a historical perspective, we renewed his predecessor's contract 8 months early. in December 2013, just before President Norris came aboard as a commissioner. And that proved to be an immense mistake as things turned out over the next 18 months. Many people in the Valley don't realize that during 2017, we had actually, was it 16 or 17? We actually had 2 chief operating officers or superintendents being paid by the district. One was the predecessor, because of some errors that the board had made. They had to pay him for a whole year. We wasted, in my opinion, we wasted $100,000 by having 2 superintendents during that year. So I just think we can learn a little bit from history, and let's not be premature on this. I think there's some really good synergy here about pay for performance and all of that, but I think that it's preempted by right now giving a bonus to a person I think that is well deserving, but it really takes the energy out of what he's proposing, and that is a performance-based system.
Okay, you skipped to debate. Do I have a second?
I second
You
it.
second. So we have a first and a second. Is there anybody else that has something to say about this before we vote?
Wait,
The motion.
can I not speak again?
No, and nobody else has spoken. I think we've given you the floor plenty of time, Commissioner Pollard. I think it's time for a vote.
Point of order. In my understanding in Robert's Rules and Orders, that when a person is recognized, they should be given 10 minutes to speak, and in a smaller organization, perhaps more.
That's only a guideline. Robert's Rules of Order doesn't actually say 10 minutes. The Jurassic Parliamentarian, I believe, has opined in an email to you that says 10 minutes is probably normal.
I think it's in Robert's Rules, but if you check that.
Can we vote?
We've got some checking going on.
Also, I think in a small organization and the amount of time, Mr. Pollard probably should be extended some additional time, but he has had, I think, adequate time. I think you can limit the amount of time you want to give him.
Yeah, because I think it's starting to move to 8:30, and I don't. How are the rest of the commissioners? Are you open to hearing more from Commissioner Pollard, or
I'd like to hear from
Commissioner Herring?
Commissioner Herring.
And the motion, just to be clear, the motion is to give the $5,000 immediately.
Yes, without extending a contract increase.
Without extending a
Without
contract increase.
yeah.
And I think he'll be up for another evaluation this year, because our evaluation for the superintendent
And the rest,
is.
I mean, I tend to think that is reasonable, I guess, based on the fact that he hasn't taken any increases in the last 2 years. And we are, in many ways, that shown some progress. Mm-hmm. That's at least my observation. So I think it is reasonable for me to say that would be, an acceptable position to be.
Well, I just want to respond on parliamentarian ruling that the length and number of speeches on page 387 identifies in a non-legislative body or organization, and you are a legislative body, but you don't have a special rule relating to the length of speeches. And since you don't have a special rule, Robert's Rules, because you don't have a special rule, says after obtaining the floor while a debatable motion is immediately pending, can speak no longer than 10 minutes unless he obtains the consent of the assembly. Such permission can be given by unanimous consent or by means of a motion to extend the limits. When the member's time is exhausted, the chair would rise, and if the member does not immediately conclude their remarks, calls attention to the fact by an appropriate signal or interrupting him. So the other is that number of speeches on the same question per member per day. Unless the assembly has a special rule, no member can speak more than twice to the same question on the same day. So I think you're moving this along, and I think you're all being very respectful and accommodating to each other. So I would encourage you to give Mr. Pollard just a little bit more time to conclude his remarks.
2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Mr. Spikers, I have a lot of respect for what he's trying to do, but I really believe that this is not the time to give a bonus, but to use this as an opportunity to restructure the compensation of the superintendent. And I heard what Steve suggested that we haven't discussed, which is to consider, depending on the cost. Because remember, we're nearly $100 million in debt. The cost of bringing in a consultant to talk with us about executive compensation, including but perhaps not limited to the superintendent. Finally, when Mr. Gallagher was here from Regional Health Yakima, I asked him what he made, and he said, it's none of my business. And that's the problem with a non-governmental.
Point of order, what does that have
Well,
to
I
do
think
with
it
the
would
present
be nice to
situation?
know what is we're talking about affiliation with this organization. What does their CEO, if you're going to make comparisons, what does their CEO?
That's not relevant at this time.
Do I have the floor or not now, Mr. President?
Well, if you're not
Relevant.
germane to the topic,
I think
the
it's very
chairman,
germane. I'm
the
not
chairman can make that ruling, Commissioner Pollard, as to if she believes you're not speaking or addressing the motion that's before the body.
What could be more germane than wanting to know a comparison of the salary with our superintendent to an organization with whom we're considering affiliation?
I think we're talking about a situation, we don't know how another organization would handle it if they had not given a raise the year before. So I think in our discussion right now, it's that we've missed a year, we didn't do anything last year. We're now talking about this year. So I think that's really, we need to focus on that. We do have a motion on the table. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor of giving the $5,000 or whatever that COLA is to Tom Parker, our superintendent, say aye. Aye. Oppose?
I am abstaining from voting.
So the ayes have it.
And I had a second motion. I would like to get somebody working on a compensation plan that would be adequate for and appropriate for CEO Parker, and would be based on partly, of course, performance-based factors. So that's my next motion.
Yeah, and I think I suggest that we should have a committee, rather than having to get another consultant and pay them. We should have some real.
Are you going
I think we could get Steve to come up with some.
We talk about
He
consultants.
could be part of the committee.
I mean, we can do our own research and find.
Well, I'm going to second the motion.
Yeah, we're
Right.
like consultant.
Yeah, we have a second? Okay, so Joan is our second. Okay, I think that's a very good idea. Do we have a timeline? Do you want to add a timeline to that?
I'd like to get it done within the next 3 months so that it's available before 60 days before his contract renewal.
Okay,
So-
so if that motion goes with the 3-month stipulation, we get this done within 3 months. All right? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? So it's, everybody's unanimous? Thank you. Thank you. Good work, everyone.
This public comment.
And we'll do that next. Do we have any public comments?
For the record, my name is Scott Scowcroft, live in North Seattle. Three things. One is looking at the agenda, and I see that new business action CEO salary comes after public comment. So move on it without benefit from public comment. Not a big deal. I guess I was looking forward to saying that in terms of CEO compensation, a bonus, I think, has passed due. And quite frankly, $5,000 is a nice token, but I really look forward to this board coming up with something that will perhaps incentivize the current superintendent from not entertaining someone else who might come down the road and say, hey, you did a pretty good job in going down, why don't you come over here? I don't think that will happen, but you never know. The second point I'd like to make is I commend the board for looking into social media. You know that that's something that is near and dear to my heart. And I again invite you to go ahead and take a look at the information that I have online at SVHS.org. And third is, I think that this board was dysfunctional for quite a while, and you've really gotten your act together. But I think that I'm seeing a little bit of backslide. And I hope that you've certainly shown the skill to be able to overcome it, but I hope that you're not under the burden of having to struggle through unnecessary complications going forward. Thank you.
What is the website? SVH?
It's, well, if you Google SVH Forum, F-O-R-U-M, it should come up.
Okay.
In the, if you need to, it is bit.ly/SVH Forum.
Apart from the slash, doesn't the hospital district own the SVH.org?
We do own that, but that's not his URL.
No, that's SVH.
SD.
Right?
It's SVH.
Oh, B. No wonder why I couldn't get that one before.
Forum. It's right.
We own SVH.org.
Okay.
What the hospital's domain is NaquamiHospital.org, and that is registered.
And what you're saying is what now?
I have an abbreviated, or I have a short URL, and it's bit.ly. If you're familiar with URL shorteners, bit.ly is one way to do it. So it's bit.ly/SVH Forum, and that should get you to our website. And on that website, you'll see that there's a tab that's devoted to hospitals' uses of social media.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other business that we need to attend to before we adjourn that I may or may not need to? Yes, Commissioner Pollard.
Normally, we do not include comments from our public comment section in our minutes, but especially since he was citing a website, I would like if those comments that he made tonight about that website be included in the minutes, if no one has an objection, just so we have it in writing. Is there any objection?
No.
I don't have any objection. Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to?
I make a motion to adjourn. I make a motion to adjourn. Unanimous.
Non-debatable.
We're adjourned.